Dina and Melba Pearson, and we are breaking down yet another lawsuit against this Trump administration. This one has to do with Mark Zaid. He was one of the people that was targeted, he was a lawyer in particular, targeted by Trump in revoking the security clearances. If you remember that one of the executive orders Trump did trying to revoke the security clearance of Mark Zaid and others, Joe Biden, this long list of people that he was trying to have retribution about. So Mark Zaid is very interesting in that he is a lawyer for whistleblowers. And so he needs that security clearance in order to do his job. And that's why he even has the security clearance to begin with. Now, he's been a whistleblower against both Republican and Democrat administrations. He was a whistleblower for the CIA agent who was testified and came forward regarding the Benghazi kind of scandal, let's say, or crisis related to Hillary Clinton. But he was also the lawyer who came forward, the whistleblower who came forward regarding, yes, the phone call Trump had with then Zelensky, Ukraine, where he was trying to withhold aid. And this is why Trump is going after him and trying to revoke his security clearance. So, of course, he's going in now and saying, Mark Zaid is going into court and saying, basically, you cannot do this. You have given me no process that as required under the law. So, Melba, here we are in another situation where Trump is trying to use the power, frankly, our power, the citizens' power, in a way to take away somebody's rights here. This way, honestly, his ability to do his job, and he has current clients who he's representing that he needs this security clearance for. But because he did something Trump didn't like, the fact that he represented him in that phone call that led to, as we know, Trump's first impeachment, him going after it. So what is your take on that?
Yeah. So Dina, this is just another in a long line of horrible constitutional violations in terms of the fact that we are stepping very far away from democracy. We're seeing a situation where we have a president that is lashing out, that is penalizing people for their views, for the work that they're doing. And again, remember, if any of us are in a situation, including us lawyers, if we're in a jam, we're going to hire another lawyer, right? And you want to make sure that there's someone for you to hire, as opposed to the situation here where the administration seems to be trying to force all attorneys into, unless you're doing something in support of my administration, in support of my viewpoints, I'm going to crush you into the ground. So it's another way of crushing dissent, which is very problematic. And also the reality is, again, like you said, Dina, he's been an attorney for 30 years. He's been doing this work for such a long time. And he has fought against Democrat and Republican administrations, which again is what you would want, because it shows that he's following the evidence, or he's following wherever the case may be, as opposed to I'm only going to work with one side and things like that. So it's just another attack on attorneys, on our democracy. And, the worst part for Mr. Zaid is he's got to pay his bills. And if you don't have that security clearance, your clients are going to be like, you know what? I'm going to go to somebody who can get the job done for me, who has that level of access. And to group him along with, your other political enemies, quote unquote. So, President Biden, Secretary of State Clinton, all of that. Again, you're revoking their security clearance and they're just like, okay, we're going to go about living our lives. That's more largely symbolic in a lot of ways, which it sends a very nasty message. But now when you're getting into the arena of cutting people's livelihood, and again, remember, the First Amendment allows us to have different viewpoints, free speech, all of that. And this is really a First Amendment argument. Because again, he's expressed whatever views, or he's also taken on certain clients, and the government cannot impose a certain viewpoint on the populace. They cannot do that. So this is, First Amendment grounds. This is, deprivation of income and and those grounds as well. I mean, Dina, this is just a hot mess, and I don't know where this is all going to go. I mean, hopefully the courts are going to weigh in and everything else, but we're also seeing this administration ignoring court orders. So,
I think the fact that he's a lawyer for the whistleblower, it makes this so important of a lawsuit, and so important that he brought it, that he wasn't one of these other law firms who decide to obey in advance and try to work with Trump, but taking him to court because he has the law on his side. He got no process whatsoever as required by law. This should be an easy win for him. And in his litigation, he points out in his pleading that Trump has this executive order. And of course, the Department of Defense, the CIA, the Director of National Intelligence, they just went ahead and go with it 100%, right? They're afraid of doing anything that Trump doesn't want him to do. And are willing to go ahead with this lawless order. His filing, his very succinctly puts really the crux of this case. It says, this case is about methods and process. More specifically, there were no methods and there was no process. Instead, the rescinding security clearances memorandum is a dangerous, unconstitutional retaliation by the President of the United States against his perceived political enemies as well as his actual legal adversaries, which eschews any semblance of due process. President Trump's directive to summarily revoke plaintiffs' security clearance has thus far been blindly implemented by at least 3 federal agencies, the CIA, the Department of Defense, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. To date, Mr. Zaid has received none of the procedural protections afforded to cleared individuals facing denial or revocation. He brings valid claims here, notwithstanding the normal deference given to decisions concerning the granting, denial, or revocation of security clearances. And he ends with, indeed, what has befallen Mr. Zaid for exercising his constitutional rights and for enabling his clients to exercise their own is no different than if defendants had blanketly revoked the clearances of a person or group because of some other protected category, such as race, gender, or ethnicity. Talk about maybe you shouldn't target a lawyer who is that good at their job. That could be another lesson here for Trump, right?
Yeah, for sure. And again, are we all seeing a common theme here? Lack of due process, whether you're an undocumented immigrant and just summarily being shipped off to a supermax prison in another country, or you're an attorney that has represented whistleblowers and all of that, and your security clearance is being revoked. Again, it's all about due process. You have the right to be heard. You have to be able to say, listen, I don't know why the government's doing this. I've always complied with all the requirements. I've never leaked any information. I've never abused my security clearance. I mean, unlike Pete Hegsworth, whatever, and all this foolishness of putting stuff in a signal chat. They don't have consequences, but an attorney who actually does the work and has not violated any of the terms of having security clearance, yeah, he gets his revoked. So, that lack of due process is so problematic, and such a undercurrent theme of this administration. Is like he doesn't understand that whole concept, even though he demanded due process in all of his trials and got it, right? I mean, there's no argument. He got his due process. Now, did he like the outcome? Separate issue. But at least you had an opportunity to be heard and have, arguments presented on your behalf. And that's all that Mr. Zaid is looking for here. And it's, completely normal. And that's what the standard was until this administration. And let's be clear, this was the standard under both Democratic and Republican administrations in the past. But this administration wants to flush that all down the toilet and not give anyone due process, which, again, unconstitutional. But we say that all the time. It's always unconstitutional. Everything he does is unconstitutional, because it is.
I mean, and that's such a great point about the due process, because that is why it's lawless, because there is no law without due process. Due process is the fundamental part of our law. In every area of the law, due process is required. Definitely criminal, also civil. You can't have evidence presented against you in civil cases. You have the right to be notified of being sued and have an opportunity to respond. If you have a parking ticket, you have the opportunity to appeal your parking ticket. In every way that the law touches you as a person in this country, we have due process baked in. So the idea that that is how he gets things done is by eliminating due process. That by nature is why he's so lawless, because if he did the due process, he would be against the law. It's again and again, as you say, this is why he eliminates due process, because there is no law without due process. And he is, as we are seeing, lawless. So we'll wrap up this segment on Mark Zaid's complaint, and we will definitely follow along on this lawsuit. Definitely very promising. I think that he's going to succeed on the merits for sure, as he should. And, we need more lawyer whistleblowers, not less. So, the strength of his complaint is good to see for others to be able to see the example he's setting as well.
And not only that, I think it's very heartening to see so many lawyers pushing back, because there's been a lot of media attention on the ones that are like, roll over, tickle my belly. I'm not going to, challenge anything. And to see these attorneys standing up, filing lawsuits, being very loud and proud and public about this, again, sets the example and tells people not to be intimidated, tells people they got to stand up and fight and not be afraid to take on the bully. So. But before we forget, if you're liking all of this content, be sure to subscribe to this channel, Legal AF. We're going to keep tracking all of these cases, making sure to bring you up to the minute updates in terms of all of these different cases, the craziness coming out of this administration, and the ways you also can get involved and at the very least know your rights.
I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.